Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is shortly after the full moon of June, 2563, Thai Buddhist era. Make you feel old? That's 2,563 years after the death of the Buddha, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's after the death of the Buddha. Huh? Right? No, no, it's not. It's not even the enlightenment, not even the birth. I think it's the death of the Buddha. So it's a long time ago. I think it's helpful to keep in mind that, that this is on one hand, we talk about it being a living tradition, still alive today. The Buddha isn't, but not physically anyway. But his teaching persists. He had enough skill in teaching that he could present a very clear path of practice that anybody can follow. It's supposed to be universal teaching for anybody, not just people in India and 2,500 years ago, but for anybody. Whether it's true or not, does anybody know yet? What is true for Australians or not? I don't know. We won't go to that. I won't go there anyway. But at the same time, while the teaching is, for a simple word, pristine, of course, how it's presented, like the Pali Canon, in the Pali Canon, for example, it is very culture bound. And even in some of the concepts and some of the ways that the Buddha explains things, how he approaches his teachings, relates to the people, to the culture of the time at India, 2,500 years ago. That's why there's so many, different attempts at translation, and why I'm keep myself busy translating too, trying to present these teachings, which, anyway, personally, if I would say personally, they can be, to me anyway, can be a little bit obscure. At least some of the more refined teachings. I mean, we all know about the basic ones, Four Noble Truths. I mean, at least we know it in principle anyway. When I was after my first meditation retreat, I returned back to Canada, and I thought one of my courses at university was about comparative religion, so I studied a bit about Buddhism, so I can get the, basic. Going to a meditation retreat, I wasn't really taught the theory of Buddhism. It was just the practice. So I picked up bits and pieces here and there, but so I thought I had to study it more comprehensively and get an overview. So I learned all about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and I don't know what else, but it was a few months course. It must have been more than that. But all that sticks in my mind is the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Even though I wrote my thesis for this course on some obscure text, which I picked up a book in Sri Lanka, the Abhidhamma Sangaha. It's not a bestseller. But it's sort of shortened summary of the Abhidhamma teaching. So anyway, I wrote my thesis on that, and I guess the professor probably couldn't understand it anyway, so he said something like, "Give me a very good mark instead of a very original topic." But then when I went to Thailand after that to meditate, the Buddhist teaching keeps emphasizing meditation. So, oh yeah, right, I got the theory, now I should go meditate. I mean, one kind of standard presentation is, they call it pariyatti, patipata, and pativeta. So the pariyatti is the study, patipati is the practice, and pativeda is the realization. So, 3 simple steps. So I had the first one, I just got 2 more. So I went to the practice part. But it was quite, it sounds simple, just, these 3 steps, but to go from the study to the practice, it was a big step. Yeah, especially I would think for a lot of people in our Western culture, because we are probably, generally speaking, we're all pretty well educated, much more than, say, the rice farmers and in the time of the Buddha. But so we were pretty good maybe at study, but the practice maybe we're not so good at. Maybe the rice farmers in time of the Buddha had better practice than we did. At least they had to have pretty good concentration to plow their field in a straight line. I guess we need good concentration to drive that windy road back to Sydney. Without going off the road, but it was quite a big step then. And when I realized, okay, I needed to meditate to do the practice. So I tried to put away all the books and just practice, but it was really confusing because it didn't quite line up with Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Every once in a while I'll be meditating, and is this right speech? Is this right concentration? Let me see, what does the book say again? It didn't say a lot about right concentration. So there was all this. So I was trying to translate my experiences into the theory. That didn't translate very well. Because, the experiences are quite a different dimension of our being. Just like between emotions and thought, isn't it? People have emotions and they're trying to think about the emotions. You say, how do you feel? No, you don't. I ask you how you feel. No, stop thinking and feel. But we just, it's a default. Is it just mine, or is it other people too? We're pretty good at thinking, but maybe not so good about being more aware of feelings. Certain dimension, or a more specific one is many people in the Western societies, because of the emphasis upon the thinking faculty, the theorizing, are quite disembodied. In Thailand, we lived in the northeast, which is mostly rice farmers, mostly farmers in those days anyway. And it was when they came to the monastery, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like a dance when they came in. And then occasionally I saw a Westerner come in, kind of stumble in like an elephant, clunk, 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 and oh, I was embarrassed. Ooh, was I like that when I first came here? But for the Thai people, they kind of float in, and then they bow their heads and they face the Buddha image, and then they know the perfect place to sit, not too close to the monks, but not too close to the Buddha, but an appropriate according to their social status. One time I think he was a minister of agriculture, came to visit the monastery, and I happened to be the senior monk by default. So I was away somewhere, so I was a senior monk. So I thought, Minister of Agriculture, I don't know all this protocol, how to receive the Minister of Agriculture. So I had no idea, and nobody else did either. We're all Westerners there, so there's no Thais around to tell us how to do this. So I just tried to do the best I can. We did put a mat out for him, a very thin reed mat on the floor so he could sit on. We didn't have any red carpets for him. So anyway, this whole group of people arrived at the door, and I was trying to figure out, who's the minister. And then they all came in, and they just sorted themselves out without a single word. And a minister sat right in front. His wife sat right there. His assistant sat right there. They all lined up on the floor exactly according to their rank, you see. I knew exactly who the minister was. And nobody said a word. They just all sat down, just right in the right place. You can imagine if it was a group of Westerners. I get the front seat. No, you get. No. But they had, I'm trying to say is they had incredible body awareness, where their body and the space they were in. When at one time they were going to build a road around the monastery, the boundary of the monastery, between the monastery and the rice fields, you see. So the abbot at that time, he took the people out, some of the villagers and some of the visiting Westerners out to dig the road, you see. And of course the villagers were used to, working in the fields all day long in the heat. See? So they went out there, and they didn't even take any water with them, I don't think, and just went out there, and they were digging the ground the whole afternoon in the heat. Hardly drew a sweat, The Westerners were out there chopping the ground for about 5 minutes and passing out from heat stroke and dying of thirst and exhausted. I would say very little body awareness anyway. Didn't know the time and the place and the situation. And if you go out in the sun, you wear a hat and take some water with you. And anyway. But so it requires there be some exercise, as the Buddha recommended, to develop the kaya anusati, develop body awareness. So in our culture today, or let's say in the culture of the Buddha's time, when the Buddha talked about body awareness, people, oh yeah, right, they got it. About feeling, they got it. But now we talk about these things in the West, and body awareness, what's that? Body? What body? So maybe it needs some special emphasis, because even though those teachings are the same as they were 2,500 years ago, but today we aren't able to access them in the same way. And I was just, as I came down here, I was just reflecting upon I've been talking a lot about the 5 groups of grasping. Yeah, remember? Anybody? And I still have to stop and think about them in a way, because they aren't common to our language, are they? The 5 groups of grasping. You don't go around to people and say, "How's your 5 groups of grasping today?" No, but and it is a bit of a it is a very, very key part of the Buddha's teachings. He refers to it often again. But for people today, Buddhists today, to hear about the 5 groups of grasping, for many people, they're puzzled. They don't say, what are you talking about? It's a little, okay, it's 5 groups of grasping, not just 4 noble truths. It takes, takes a bit to get your mind around. But I was just thinking as I came down, if I happened to say, the 5 functions of personality, would you get it? The 5 basic functions of your personality: physical, feeling, memory, mental activity, consciousness. Aren't these basic personality functions? If you say, oh, I remember, or some people identify a lot with their memories, especially as you get older. I went there and I went here and I got this degree, whatever. For some people, it's a lot to do with, they identify more with feeling, how they feel. They particularly, if you have some physical ailments, you want to feel good, or you struggle with trying to feel good physically, rather than being in pain all the time. And a physical body sometimes. Maybe you could say something like, people who identify with physicality, they may be more athletically inclined. If somebody tried to match up these personality functions with your vocation in life, somebody who was more attached to or identified with thinking, became a thinker, a philosopher. They use their thinking faculty much more efficiently. Yeah, and maybe they're computer scientists, maybe something. People who have more feeling, maybe they're more artistic. They a musician or a painter or somebody, gets into the feeling of things. But don't want to get too abstract here, but if we can look at them more as, rather than these, Buddhist 5 groups of grasping or just personality functions that we tend to identify with as myself, maybe you get the point better. But it's a matter of, partly translation, but partly also trying to, put our mind in that particular state of mind the Buddha is trying to relate to. There's one book which one scholar monk wrote, Westerner, and he said the title of his book is Entering into the Thought World of Pali Buddhism. So, Pali Buddhism has a particular approach to present reality. And while all religions, I think, they're trying to present the truth of reality, they have different approaches to do it. So Theravada Buddhism has its own particular approach, and it appeals to some people. Other people just can't quite get into it. When I traveled in India, I went up to Dharamsala. It's one of those places you got to go to. The Dalai Lama lives there, see? Center of Tibetan Buddhism. So anyway, went up there, and of course it's all about Tibetan Buddhism. And so I got interested. I even maybe I would even stay there, become a Tibetan monk or something. Well, first of all, I was going to be a Tibetan tanka painter. I didn't want to be a monk, just a tanka painter. It's close enough to Buddhism for me. Nice pictures and nice colors and things. But I met some of the people there, and some of them wanted to do meditation, some wanted to stay longer and study Tibetan Buddhism. But in order to proceed through the kind of courses there, it was very study orientated, you see. So before you could do a meditation retreat, you had to spend 1 year going to classes at the Tibetan library and studying Tibetan Buddhism. And I went there one day to listen to the lecture, and it was all about the law of karma, and quite, would say, quite traditional, I guess you'd say. They talk about the different hell realms and different heaven realms, and and you get reborn depending upon your karma in different realms and stuff like this. And I just, oh my goodness, I just came from university. I had enough of this stuff. I just want to go meditate and empty my mind or something. So anyway, so my sojourn there was a bit short. I just wanted to go meditate. So I thought I had enough study already, so I just had to go meditate. But if one doesn't have a good basis in Buddhist theory, the first factor of the Eightfold Path is right view. If we haven't got right view, we can do all kinds of meditation we want, but where does it go? If we have some weird view of things, When I was in England one time, I was asked to go to this meditation group, and I had no idea what to. I thought I had some reasonable idea how to talk to Thai people about Buddhism, being in Thailand 9 years. But I went to England, and what to talk to English people about Buddhism. I had no idea what to tell them, what to talk about even. So I asked them, why don't you tell me why you came to Buddhism? What a strange mixture of... There was one man, of course, gave the standard, life is suffering, so I came to find a way out of suffering. And one woman came, she came to Buddhism because she wanted to learn psychic powers. She could learn to fly and meditate and levitate, So there were quite a few books on Buddhism around, but there was all kinds of strange things too, And it wasn't presented like in Thailand. It's presented in a religious form. You see, people come to the temple, and admittedly there are some strange takes on that, which I won't go into on camera. But most of it's pretty mainstream. I mean, it's because it's part of the culture and part of the, the whole culture of the country. There were certain restrictions and laws and things. So it can't go too far wrong. You see, but when people are practicing on their own, then they can have all kinds of maybe not right view, wrong view even. They're meditating for the wrong reasons. This woman who wanted to learn levitation, there is talk about it in the Pali Canon, about monks flying and stuff, but I wouldn't say it's the main purpose of Buddhism. It's one of the side effects of meditation, maybe, but not the main purpose, you see. But nowadays these teachings are available to a wide range of people. See, in the Buddhist time, if you wanted to learn about Buddhism, about meditation, you had to go to a teacher, because it was all oral teachings. There was nothing written down. So you had to go to a teacher. You had to get to know. He got to know you. Maybe you had a little discussion about what your interest was, and then he could prescribe a certain meditation or spiritual practice for you, individually, personally. And then you go away with that, and then you come back, and how you doing with it. Just like on some of the meditation retreats, a teacher has interviews with people. How are you doing with it? How's it going? Maybe try this, maybe try that, whatever. And sometimes, there is most people are generally can use the main or the main meditation exercises using breathing, mindfulness of breathing, and then maybe some metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation, maybe the contemplation on the unwholesomeness of the body or something. But I would, some of them I would never mention in public. I never talk about death meditation in public because people have some weird ideas about that. But for some people who've come to me for personal advice, then maybe I have mentioned to them in that particular context, but not in public. So there's main ones which anybody can use and benefit from, and then there's very specific ones. Just in the Theravada tradition, there's 40 different ones. And if you're, practicing on your own, I mean, it can be helpful to probably you won't be able to get very, very deep into them, but it can be helpful to know a bit about them. Because sometimes in your practice, it can benefit from some other types of meditation too. Like, for example, a number of these meditation themes are about devotional practices. The reflection on the Buddha, reflection on the Dhamma, reflection on the Sangha, reflection on generosity, reflection on morality. And sometimes they can be helpful. Like in Thailand one time, I was when I was first practicing in Thailand, I was on my own, basically meditating on my own, and that's I was fine with that. But after a while, you begin to wonder, am I the odd one out here? Or even in the monastery I was at, I was one of the ones who did the most meditation. A few the other monks, they did some meditation, but a lot of them didn't meditate, and I couldn't quite figure out, because it's main part of Buddhism, I thought, But for some of the monks, I mean, they have other interests. Some are involved with more study, some involved with social work, with teaching, and some perform lots of rituals. They go and do different ceremonies for people at houses or whatever. So they have different vocations in the monastic form, you see. But they were happy. They left me alone to do my meditation. But after a while, I didn't have a teacher after a while, and so I don't know what I was doing. But and then I went to Wat Nana Chat, and there, Ajahn Chah's monastery, they emphasized a lot of group practice. When I was up in Chiang Mai on my own, at one time I was the only Western monk in Chiang Mai. So when I had to walk to the immigration office, people would say, Western monk, Prat Farang, Prat Farang, Prat Farang, and I knew who they're talking about. Because there's only me there. I was the only one. But then I went to Wat Nana Chat, and there was a dozen Westerners there. And then I heard somebody came in one day, some Thais, and they said, "Oh, Western monk, Western monk." And I had to laugh because there's 12 of us. It's not me. That's what Sangha means, you see. The Sangha, the community. And if you reflect upon the Sangha, which has been around for 2,500 years, more than that, if that's from the death of the Buddha, the Buddha set up the Sangha very early on after his awakening. So it's been around for 2,600, nearly 700 years. The Sangha has persisted, the community of practitioners, and the monastic Sangha in particular was set up in the time of the Buddha and still survives today. They say the oldest monastic order on the planet. They say. I don't feel that old. But we're part of. Then you're not. Many times we're sitting with our eyes closed, watching our own mind, and our own feelings and our own bodily sensations. But we're part of a huge tradition, over 2,700 years old. There's been many, many people, practitioners like you, So don't take it so personal. You're just one of a big crowd of, and of them there's, many arahants too, many fully enlightened beings. You look at your own mind, you think, oh my gosh, I got a long way to go yet, but I'm sure all those arahants also had the same thought, when they sat and looked at their mind, thought, oh my goodness, they had a long way to go. But by the end of their life, they were arahants, so don't lose hope. And when you contemplate the Sangha, there's a very, very rich lineage of experience there too. Like that was one of the main benefits I experienced at Wat Nana Chat. It wasn't, Ajahn Chah was a great inspiration, but he wasn't there very often. Ajahn Sumedho was inspiration sometimes, but what I found the most valuable was the other monks I could talk to, and they had different experiences, they had different suggestions. I had my own practice, my own experiences this way, and then they had different ways of practice and different experiences, and it was, oh, right, yeah. So some of it was a matter of maybe trying out what they had practiced with, they found it useful, and maybe a little bit more personal. Ears go up. with a community of people, there's invariably somebody is up and somebody's down. Just in general, say somebody who's going through a hard time maybe, but somebody else is, they're having a very good meditation, or they're very inspired or something. So if you can recognize, if you are somewhat depressed or disillusioned or whatever, and say, oh, but they aren't. It's not like it's a common sickness or something. I can get through this. But if you're on your own, all you got to measure yourself by is yourself, right? So when I was up in Chiang Mai by myself, some days, I had enough. I'm leaving here. I'm going back to university. I'm going to quit. Yeah. 2 days later, I'm inspired again. Was it the meal I had, or what? Was it? What was it? One good meditation, and then change your mind changes. Yeah. Sometimes it can be a bit, not just day by day, but it can be longer too, And just having other people around who are, carrying on, who have had some success, have been benefiting from the practice, can give you some encouragement. Yeah, you just, this one of those stages you're going through. And maybe they have some suggestions, maybe not. But there still can be a teacher to you. They've got through it, just like when you're on a meditation retreat sometimes, there's somebody is, you're feeling really tired and nodding off, but the person sitting over there is, well, maybe I can do that too. I'm not just a hopeless case, The next day they're nodding and you're sitting. So you can share in the experiences in a community, say, basically. They can help you to round out your practice, your different takes on things, different ways of practice, and so that's one of the contemplations, one of the meditation themes, is contemplate about the wealth of experience in the Sangha, for example. And maybe we have our own, perception of what we think, an enlightened being should be. But when you read about the different personalities of the Buddhist disciples, there's a whole range of different personalities. We're not all clones. So you get a rich experience of different ways that, wisdom is expressed, for example. Maybe there's some that you prefer over others, but that match your temperament or your personality or something, and you can benefit from them. But it's also helpful to find people that are somewhat challenging too. You know, that maybe we say, push your buttons. Otherwise, you just keep taking the easy route all the time, you see. That's the same thing with, say, going on a meditation retreat. You know, when you're meditating by yourself, you sit, in your own comfort zone. But when you go on a retreat, sometimes you have to push the limits a bit. In different hours of practice, different lengths of practice, being with different environments or something. Because there was always the danger of the spiritual practice becoming more and more limited to just what's comfortable for yourself. That was also another lesson I learned by going to Wat Nanachat, because I was practicing on my own, so I sat when I wanted to, walked when I wanted to. I couldn't eat when I wanted to, but I still had to follow the rules. But as far as the exercises went, the sitting and walking, but at Wat Nanachat, it was a group practice. So I've said this many times, told the story many times, but at Wat Nanachat at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the bell rang for the communal chores. You see, mostly that time it was water hauling. We didn't have taps in those days. We had to go to a communal well and draw the water out and put it in big buckets and carry it to the bathing area, to the bowl washing area, to the kitchen, to the foot washing areas. And it was quite strenuous work, carrying these great big 5-gallon drums of water around the place, on a long pole, 2 of us. So it wasn't, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was sort of hot and sticky, and so it wasn't a very nice thing to do. So I thought, well, I'll meditate. It's one of the times I have my better meditations too, in the afternoon. You see, that was when I was in Chiang Mai. That was one of my preferred times. 3 to 5 in the afternoon was one of my better times. You see. And then so I 3 o'clock I'd be trying to meditate there, and then ding, 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 the bell rings. And I thought, meditation is closer to enlightenment than water hauling. I'm making more merit by meditating than hauling water. So the first time I skipped it, and then when I came out for tea time, everybody looking at me, because if one person doesn't turn up, it's more work for the others, right? Yeah. So, and nobody said anything, I don't think, because I was just visiting then, I think, so they didn't say anything, but daggers coming out of their eyes. So the next day, next time it happened, I felt a little bit guilty. Should I sit here and get enlightened, or should I go haul water? So I think maybe it was the third day, finally it just occurred to me, I remember one of Ajahn Chah's teachings, when you eat, you eat, when you talk, you talk, when you work, you work, you just be present with whatever's happening. So, and I'm staying in his monastery, so maybe I should follow his advice. Maybe I should put his teaching into practice rather than just talk about it. So I said, okay, I'll go do the water hauling, see. So I went to, the first time I went to the water hauling feeling guilty, and I came back and I was just grumbling in my mind, it's a waste of time. So I sat in meditation, and then blah, 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 blah. No meditation. So the next day I thought, okay, I'll just do it. So I went there, I guess somewhat mindfully got up and went to the water hauling and hauled the water, and then I came back again and sat, and my mind was really peaceful. Oh, really? Rather than complaining about it, I just did it. Just be present with whatever you're doing. And even though I was a little bit more tired maybe, but maybe that's why I had better meditation, because I was too tired to think. But I realized there was not a conflict there, I wasn't complaining about it. So that was more disturbance for meditation, was complaining about it rather than just doing it. And then when you do it, you do it. When you finish, you finish. End of story. Very simple. So some of these, these lessons, just by surrendering to the routine, for example, even though I didn't necessarily like it, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, actually now I get up at 2 o'clock. I'm a morning person. So after 8:30, I'm finished. So I only got another 20 minutes. I had to drag myself down here, actually. It's a good thing it's downhill, not uphill. But then I realized that when I was in Chiang Mai on my own, my practice got less and less and less, basically, because it was more and more uncomfortable. The sittings, and I had sleepiness problems, and I had pain problems and things, so I just avoided it. So I ended up sitting and walking less and less and less, reading more books, studying Thai, walking around the forest, and then coming to Wat Nanachat. There's, the bell rings and you have to be there for evening chanting, morning chanting, and so I realized that, even though I was sort of called meditating in Chiang Mai, but I was following my own desires of meditation, my own preferences. So it was just feeding my spiritual ego, you can say. I was meditating, but on my own terms, meditating for myself. Or then at Wat Nanachat, you had to surrender yourself, basically surrender yourself to follow the impersonal, non-personal routine. And everybody did it. Whether you like it or don't like it, you just do it. The like and dislike is personal. It's my ego. But just doing it is impersonal. And okay, Ajahn Chah personally made the schedule, but but being a wise teacher, he realized, okay, this is what's helpful for people. You just surrender all your preferences, as much as you can. Maybe there's still, a little niggling voice in the background there saying, as you're sitting there at 6 o'clock in the evening in the meditation hall, getting chomped away by mosquitoes, my blood's draining away. God, I'm getting getting weaker and weaker and weaker. This is dangerous. I could have malaria. Sometimes it did take quite a bit of self-surrender. I just had to surrender your body to the mosquitoes. If you thought this mosquito's biting me, it really hurt. But the mosquito is not biting you. He's just looking for blood. She's looking for blood. So it's not personal at all. And sometimes pushing against the limits of sleepiness and discomfort and things, is pushing back these comfort zones of self. Another way to surrender yourself, having to give it up. You got to be careful. It's not, self-mortification. The Buddha taught the middle way. So you have to recognize, when is enough. That was one of Ajahn Chah's frequent teachings. Good enough, good enough, good enough. Yeah. Not extreme. I mean, some people they make a religion out of austerity or something. Being the really, really austere one. Eating the least and sleeping the least and all that, and they pat themselves on the back and say, "Look at how great I am. I should be an arahant any day now." All they're doing is bolstering their ego, spiritual ego. And your spiritual ego is one of the hardest ones to give up, because it is praised. There were I remember one of the monks. He was quite ascetic. He hardly talked to anybody, and comes back from alms round, and we're sort of supposed to kind of not talk after alms round, sort of supposed to. But of course, there's always a little bit of people in the background, the normal ones. But he would sit there like a rock, right after the alms around, he'd sit there, and then he would, he was really kind of the prime example of the perfect monk. And even we got praised for it, Look at, if you want to be a good monk, be like him, you see. And after about 2 months, he totally cracked up. He went totally mad. He was just putting it on. It was just a big. And then it came out that he was, he had this issue with his father. His elder brother was a great athlete and a scholar at university, and he was a failure, and he couldn't live up to his father's expectations, so he's going to live up to the Buddha's expectations. It was just so phony. It wasn't normal. See, I would say that's the self-mortification. See, and the poor guy, he didn't even know he's doing it. All in the name of spiritual practice. There's a word for it, spiritual bypassing, if you want to look it up. He was using spirituality as a psychological bypass for psychological problems, you see. And if it's not recognized, he gets praised, because he was doing the right thing, see, but it was just too artificial. Didn't fit into reality, as it were. So sometimes religion can do that. Or it can be taken as that. We try and imitate, the rituals and how things were in the time of the Buddha, and nowadays some people emulate, this kind of the grandfather of the forest tradition, Ajahn Mun. Want to be like Ajahn Mun, go out and live in the forest with the tigers and things. But trouble is there aren't any tigers left. But but it makes a great story, and we have our our heroes to live up to, you see. So want to be that hero monk, and but it takes a lot more wisdom to tune into your own personality. You have to practice in this body, in this mind, not practicing like Ajahn Mun, but practicing like you right now in this particular body and mind. It takes a lot more wisdom and clarity and honesty to be able to do that. Sure, I would like to be, kind of all these hero figures like Ajahn Mun. I tried it. I just got dysentery and living up in the hill tribes in Chiang Mai, and there weren't any tigers around anymore, and all tigers have been eaten, but and just been living on very simple food, but just got exhausted, fell asleep in meditation. That I didn't have very good meditation up in the mountains. It was quiet, but malnutrition and discomfort, and so I realized Ajahn Mun could survive on very little food because he came from that northeast of Thailand, and they were just it was a poor part of Thailand, so they lived with very, very simple diet. He could do it. He grew up there, but coming from a Western country, used to my 2,000 calories a day with hamburger sauce on it. It was just a hopeless ideal, But trying to translate those teachings, we can say these teachings are they're the complete teachings, but how to translate them now to the present time. That's what and then to do that, you have to look at what is the principle, what is the fundamental principles, the middle way, the morality, meditation, wisdom, There's certain fundamental principles which then you have as a theory, but now how to apply them. Now, just something like morality, it's very, very complicated these days with morality. What's honesty now? And now the copyright infringement. Is that you have to be really honest about copyright infringement issues. Didn't have it in the time of the Buddha. But we want to try to apply these principles of morality, practicing harmlessness, and practicing rather than accumulation, possessionlessness, having less things to worry about, sensual restraint. Nowadays there's so much sensual input to the senses, sensual bombardment. It was very, very simple in the time of the Buddha. They didn't have neon signs flashing in your face, But some of these principles, they still apply, but now how to apply them in the present time, in present day and age, you see. Sometimes we can use some of these basic Buddhist principles, but then we have to adapt them or adjust them to suit your own particular state of mind. And just to use those exercises kind of blindly and just as a ritual, maybe it's not going to work. Just to adapt. The Buddha did that, so I can do that. It's like Ajahn Mun could live in the mountains of Chiang Mai and a handful of rice. I can do that too. No, you can't. It takes a lot of honesty to recognize you can't. You need to look after the body, and the body can't survive on that handful of rice. Not used to it. And living in a simple environment, it's we have to be able to sometimes train the body to reduce the all its needs, simplify your living space, simplify your way of living, simplify how much activity like mental activity you have. Nowadays there's so much mental input, sensory input and mental input. You got to think about many things. Just driving on the road, reading all the road signs, gives you a headache. But you also need to be alert, driving. So trying to apply these principles, though, to the present time, and this takes some reflection, some contemplation. What is really the purpose? Fortunately, Ajahn Chah would explain a lot of the meaning of the rituals and ceremonies and things, why they do them. Why do we do the Pali chanting, Even though it's even in Pali language, why do we do it in Pali, For me, I found that doing it in Pali, it was just, I can just go into the rhythm of the sound, you see. So it was what we call a right brain activity, It's just sound. Don't need to think about it. But if I want to think about it, then I do it in English, see, to know what I'm chanting. But then if I do that, it triggers off the left brain. The thinking part, But if you don't want to necessarily think about it, you just do the rhythm, the chanting in Pali, see. You get into the rhythm of it, and you don't have to worry about the meaning. Or sometimes hearing it in a different way, it can be meaningful. Like in Thailand, we did it in Thai translation, the chanting. You think Pali is difficult? Try it in Thai translation. However, when I did it, sometimes hearing it in Thai is different than the English translation. I said, oh, really? Is that what that means? Different perspective. So once we know what these rituals are and what their purpose is, then you can apply them accordingly. And they're more relevant then to our state of mind and state of being as in the present time, rather than just something we copy from 2,500 years ago, which maybe has some benefits, but it's still missing out the real relevancy in your life right now. Just going through the Buddhist ceremonies, for example, they keep you out of trouble anyway. But if you can apply them meaningfully, they can be much more relevant to you. Yeah, going through the basic precepts and apply them now, refraining from killing, refraining from stealing, from sensual indulgence, from intoxication, from lying. You know. And what does it mean in the present time then? So this is we have this great teaching and lineage from 2,500 years ago, but to keep it alive, it needs to be lived in the present time, rather than just as a museum piece or something we remember from the. We can worship the Buddha. Yes, a great teacher, but he's gone. But he can be alive right now. The Buddha is knowing right now. The Buddha means the one who knows. So when you know, you're the Buddha, little Buddha. Little knowing, little Buddha. Big knowing, big Buddha. So, but the knowing is a living experience. It's not somebody who died 2,500 years ago. It's a living experience of knowing in the present moment. So hopefully you can realize that for yourself. Little by little, moment by moment, until you can keep it alive and nourish it. And it becomes something more and more prominent in your life then. So keep knowing, keep feeding the knowing.